Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I'm your host, is Jeremy, always here trying to make the world seem a little more normal. It goes against everything I believe in, but, I try, and I fail every time, basically. Well, actually, no, this week we had a couple more normal episodes. What can I say? We hit more of the science side of things. Some interesting science. Giggity. But anyway, we are here tonight to continue down this path and probably make the world a lot less normal, but you love it, so stop complaining. And as always, I bring a guest to help me on this perilous path. And my guest tonight is Ashley Brothers, founder of the Institute of Conscious Evolution and a life coach, psychic medium, practitioner, teacher of shamanism, and so much more. But we'll get into all that, I'm sure, at some point. How you doing, Ashley?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Busy day, busy, depressing day, but I'm here and that makes me happy and that makes everything worthwhile. So let's do this shit and get it on with because it's always a good time. And gonna start off with the way I start every interview off. What got you into the paranormal?
Ha. Being born.
You'd be surprised how often that's the answer.
No, seriously. So like I thought my first memory would originally was just, being brought home from the hospital as a baby, being weighed as a baby, getting my first shots, things like that. And then, standing on the edge of my crib, watching what I called the gray people or shadow beings walking around my room. And my poor parents could hear me screaming through the floor for years. And they'd come running down the stairs going, "What the hell's going on?" Sometimes I'd fallen out of bed and I was, bleeding, all sorts of stuff, because things would be touching me, saying things to me, whatever. And even when I was nonverbal. So there were times where I literally couldn't explain what was going on. But I think it was like when I was actually in college, I was like 17, I'd gone there a year early. And I kept having these memories coming up of when my mom had passed out between a black chair and an ottoman, and how my sister and I were playing next to mom's body, waiting for dad to come home, like playing with Lincoln logs and little blocks and making like basically little, I don't know, like not a fort, but just like making little structures around mom's body and just basically having a good old time. And I could even recall what she wore that day, all the TV shows she watched and everything. And my mom freaked out, handed the phone to my dad, and he's like, "What the hell?" And so I explained the whole story over again. And he said that my mom had had a diabetic reaction, passed out, went into a coma, and my sister had not been fed or changed in 7 hours. But she was smiling and giggling when he got home. I said, "What about me?" He said, "Your mother had passed out on her pregnant stomach. She was 6 months pregnant with you at the time and had been laying directly on her, on the fetus, which was me. And somehow my consciousness popped out and was playing with my sister. And for 17, 18 years, that's what I remember as my very first memory. But I didn't realize I was not embodied."
Okay. Well, first things first, the only thing I can say to that is holy fucking shit. But and well, I mean, that this is a first for me. I mean, memories from the womb. I am truly impressed and awed, and 5,000 other adjectives I can't think of at this moment. But Jesus, I don't. I rarely ever get jaw-droppingly silent on this show, and this is one of those times. But whoa, okay, yeah, I don't even know. But
I feel like
that
when
story is incredible.
I feel like when she was laying face down on me, basically, because she was, face down or whatever, that somehow my consciousness popped out. And you know what I mean? So like my soul or whatever, because everything I remember was not from the womb itself. It was from the whole living room. And so, I mean, there were moments where she was still, I guess I was still in the womb, but I was still disembodied for some reason. Because I remember the TV shows she wore or watched, putting her hair in rollers, the different things on the radio station. So somehow I was not fully hanging out in the meat suit at that time.
Well, I mean, you obviously popped out for a reason to keep your sister calm and to just, I don't know. Everything happens for a reason, so that's got to be it. But that's insane, and this is not gloss over the fact that you're seeing shadow people in your crib. Like that's and yeah, I mean the fact that you have memories from this far back is just astounding, and that you thought your first memories were from like the getting weight as a baby. I'm like, eh? Like that's unheard of. That's pretty much unheard of, and that's incredible. Wow. Okay, I don't do Friday night interviews normally, but they're like fucking start. Like Jesus, but oh my god. So when did you start realizing that you actually, fully had these abilities? Like when did you start actually practicing with them?
So, ha, um, I didn't really realize that I had abilities. I mean, I had like premonitions that would prevent accidents or death, even as a small child. You know what I mean? And so, like 11 years old, being woken up out of bed and being told I had to go to the garage. It'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning. I had no idea why I was supposed to go to the garage, but I did. Found that the car was left running, and the garage door closed. And so the whole thing was filled with fumes that were going up into my mother's bedroom. Because my dad used to like change cars around. I don't know why they did it that way. But anyway, he changed cars around and he accidentally left the car running in a closed garage and the fumes went all the way upstairs. So at 11 years old, I woke up out of a dead sleep, knew where I had to go to turn that off, and then wake my mom up, and she was barely cognizant. Take her out to the front lawn and let her basically come back into oxygenation, but also too feeling like she had asked me if I wanted to go in the car with her one day to go to this fabric store, like really far away. And at first I said no because I had a really bad feeling. And then I got a worse feeling thinking of her going by herself. So I opened the garage door, ran down the alley at like 10 or 11 years old, and slammed my fist on the trunk of her car. And she just stopped and she's like, "What?" I said, "Let me in the car." And later she had an insulin reaction while driving and went into the oncoming lane. And I grabbed the wheel at 11 and told her how to use the pedals of the car to get it to stop. And so I didn't really, those things came upon me unexpectedly. I couldn't call upon them at will until I started my training in 2004 when I was age 26.
Jesus, I mean, I feel like your whole childhood could be a podcast. Like I really do. But I mean, I'm sure you get into it on yours a little bit, but I it's gee, these stories are just my God, I'm awestruck. I really am. And I mean, yeah, okay. So if you're 24, say you were a kid in the '80s, so yeah, diabetes medicine wasn't what is now anywhere near
Yeah.
that then. And before I do continue, thank you, Harley, for coming to watch as always. And oh, we've been blessed by the immortal Angus the Death Hand from another dimension. What up, buddy? Can't wait to see you tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, it's just Jesus. I mean, so how did you start practicing them? Did you find people who could teach you, or did you start just using YouTube? Or I mean, I think
No,
YouTube was around 2004. I was gonna
YouTube
say.
was not there yet. This is pre
Ah,
YouTube.
I'm like
Or
I was alive in 2004. I'm like I can't remember when the hell YouTube actually started. Like it was around that time.
well, maybe, yeah, maybe it was, but I wasn't even aware it existed. Like I'm pre internet. That's
Oh
how
yeah, I mean, oh
yeah.
God, yeah,
So
please, I remember the AOL fucking dial tone shit. Like, come on, like
yeah,
I'm pre-internet too. Like, it's just I know when I was in high school, YouTube. That's when YouTube came out when I was in high school, and I remember watching like Robot Chicken like clips on it and shit back in the day. But
yeah.
so
No, I was actually had been reading some paranormal books when I was in college, but I think I was working for the government at the time. I was a medical claims examiner for Social Security disability, reading people's prison records, medical records, all sorts of stuff to figure out why they couldn't physically or mentally or emotionally work. And on my lunch break, I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. I was super depressed on medications, and I was just like sort of a zombie. And I decided to go for a tarot card reading. And at that point, I had been put on medications because of depression and anxiety. And one of the doctors had asked me, "Do you hear voices?" And I thought somebody was finally interested in my spirituality, and and that was not the case. So they put me on medications for schizoid affective disorder, which is like a form of schizophrenia. Anywho, so I was on medication for a couple years, feeling like a zombie. Went for a tarot card reading, and the reading was unremarkable. But at the very end, the lady said, "Do you know that you can speak to the dead? If you are interested in developing this gift and skill, call this number." And all the hair on my body stood up. And I called the number of the woman that did a healing on me. And she became my first mentor, my first teacher in shamanism and basically tarot cards and mediumship and stuff like that. And so she sort of opened the door for me a little bit. But even then, I was so insecure, just even being in class, that it wasn't until she introduced me to a gentleman who was practicing Lakota traditions, Neil Blessed Sojourner. He was Native himself. And he taught me the songs, ceremonies, the dances, and what have you. And just his kindness, his wisdom really taught me reverence and a way of listening, hearing the other side in such a way that I could call upon it at will, just in time to basically prevent me from dying.
Damn. Which, I mean, the fact you got to train with a Native American is just amazing. I mean, that's the
12
dream in the
years.
paranormal world.
Yep, 12
And
years.
that's awesome. That's freaking awesome. And my God, okay, I'm just putting the math together in my head. I'm like, you do not look your age, Jesus. Like,
I'm 46.
I I could easily say 26 and think I'm right, but okay. But yes, I mean, I'm an honest person. What can I say? But and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this straight out. You would love the theme song from my podcast, based on that story you just told about being diagnosed with schizophrenia and stuff. Like you would love my theme song from my podcast. It is just, it's a song called "The Moonflower Society" by Aventasia, and I use like the chorus of it for my theme song. It's freaking right up there. It's a mesh so perfectly with this episode. I'm telling you. But even though it's with every episode, but still, it's just I've had so many comments on it. It's just a damn good song for the paranormal. But uh all right. So, and I mean that explains the shamanism a little bit. The fact that you work with Native Americans, that explains the shamanism. Did you ever travel outside the U.S. to work with other cultures, or?
Yeah, so I worked with different tribes in Washington, but then I went to well, there were some people that came to the United States that were from Tibet, New Zealand, Australia, Mongolia, and Mexico that I trained with. But I also went down to Peru and Chile to learn from some of the Inca and Mayans down there.
Nice. That's the other dream, is to be able to travel like that and actually learn from these people. It's on my bucket list. One day when I'm old and my kids are grown, but someday we'll see. But so, for those who don't know, what is your definition of shamanism? Because everybody I talk to who is into this, it's a different definition. I love hearing the differences.
So the term shaman is culturally specific to basically northern Asia and only that region. Some people will say it's from Siberia, Tungus tribes. Others will say it's somewhere else, but basically northern Asia and only northern Asia. And it was brought over by anthropologists to the European and Western cultures, and they use that term broadly to categorize groups that believed in animism. Animism is when you believe there is a consciousness within everyone and everything, even if it's a rock, a plant, an insect, an animal, or whatever, and that you can go into alternate states of consciousness to connect with these beings or go to these other realms, dimensions, for either information, power, protection, or healing. So shamanism is basically a modern day, well, it's an ancient term, but in the modern day, it's used as a bucket list, or a bucket list term, basically, for these groups that believed in these particular practices. And they would go into these alternate states of consciousness looking for anything that was um, intrusive in energy that was negatively impacting people, or that would that needed to be removed, whether that be entities, curses, thought forms, wounding imprints, or blueprints that were you know causing people to have mental, emotional, or physical illnesses. Or they would do what's called soul retrieval, in which they would look for essence or consciousness people lost as a result of their life's experiences, whether it be past or present life, and how to restore that to the person so they could be whole again. So yeah, so I don't know if you heard any of that, but
I heard every word.
okay, yeah. So basically, it's that, and I've spoken to people who are from the northern Asian tribes, and they sort of kind of like the modern day version of it is not what people, it's not what's true to it, because the costumes, even a lot of people don't realize that the costumes are not just whatever. They're meant to look scary. They're meant to be hide the human
Huh?
from um, the spirit realm. They will wear effigy masks, so it's a mask infused with the consciousness of their ancestor or their helping spirits, that when they put it on, they merge with that essence, and they might feel floaty. They may completely, their own consciousness disconnect, and this other being takes over. um they use rattles and drums and all sorts of things to get themselves into those alpha theta brainwave frequencies that allows them to access these alternate states. So that's my definition of shamanism.
I like it. It's actually a lot more in depth than most people go, and I freaking love that. And I mean, the costumes are very important. They are. I mean, Native Americans didn't wear all these headdresses and all this. Like, I mean, we've all seen the pictures. No, they didn't wear all this attire just to, look pretty or look fancy. They wore it for reasons. They wore it for to connect themselves with what they were trying to connect with. I mean, whether it be animal spirits, whether it be the spirits of their passed on loved ones, like whatever they want to connect with, they're wearing it. And I mean, if they're going to war, they're going to wear freaking wolf skins and bear skins and buffalo skin, whatever. Like something they need to give them the strength and energy. If they're going to just do a ceremony to honor their ancestors, they're going to wear stuff that is imbued with that freaking energy. Like it's very important. I mean, and I know there's going to be some horror movie fans out there that are like, oh, so Leatherface is just trying to get the strength of all the people he's killed. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. But no, but I mean, shamanism is basically the truest religion, I believe. I mean, it really is because it
It's
actually
not a
has those
religion.
abilities.
It's not a
And
religion. It's a lifestyle.
definitions.
Well, to be honest, if you talk to the people that come from those traditions, they believe there is a it's a lifestyle. It was originally to stay alive. If you did not know how to connect with the rain spirits or whatever, because I've seen some people, they can make clouds appear. Some of the folks I've been around, but it was originally for survival. It was they would do these rituals and whatever to see where's the best hunting ground to go to, or how do I heal my sick relative, or how do I bring wealth to my tribe, or make it rain, all the different things. It used to be a survival thing, so it was an all day everyday thing. You know what I mean?
I
Like, you
mean,
had a relationship with the plants and
oh,
the
I mean,
animals.
I mean, I get that. I mean, I 100% get that, but that also religion used to be a lifestyle as well back in those olden days as well. I mean, if you're a Christian, you're a Christian to your core. Like you just, it wasn't just I go to church on Sundays. It was I live by these words every day of my life, no matter what. Like, I mean, look at back in the Salem witch trial days, for God's sakes. Like, most of those people lived by Christianity and or Catholicism, based where you live, but they lived on those things 100%. It was their life. It wasn't just like a one day a week for an hour type of thing like it is nowadays. It was actually it meant something back then. You were closer to God or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, I get it. Shamanism is a lot more in depth, really, it is, but it's comparable to religion in a way, almost, at least back in the olden days. Nowadays, God no, God no. Now it's all corporation. Religion is basically a corporation nowadays, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it with
Yeah.
a fiery passion. Don't let my speech here ever let anybody think I actually like religion because I really don't. I believe whatever you want to believe, people, but I'm not going to be offended by it. I'm not going to be upset by it. I'm not going to make fun of it. But I don't believe in the big organized religions. No, no. They're only out for themselves. They're only out for the money, and they're only out for the power. That's all they care about. But
Well, you have to remember that the original thing is there was one shaman or medicine person for the village, or maybe a couple, and so
yep.
it, but animism is the baseline of all of this stuff, and animism is not a religion. It's more of the, again, you believe there's a consciousness within anything and everything that you can connect to, communicate with, have a relationship with, you know, in that way. And so that's where there's like a little bit of a thing where you're not going to church and listening, or anywhere else basically, and listening to one person say it all. The whole community was involved in invoking this relationship with the divine for, again, for survival. So
But see, here's the funny thing about animism. I actually learned it in high school and college in religion classes I took. Like as like a religion, I took a religions of the world class in high school or something like that, and extracurricular shit, and well, not extracurricular, elective, I should say. But in college, I took a religions of the East, and animism was taught in both as a religion. Like, because I mean, certain Japanese people, like, that's their religion basically. That's what they believe in, and that's so it's classified as a religion by, you know, educational facilities because
yes,
they don't know what
yes,
else they don't know what else to call it. They really don't know,
yes, correct.
especially back when I was in school, especially. I mean, like that was 20 years ago, for God's sake, almost. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, times have changed, but I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I honestly don't know if I ever could be a part of animism because I mean, I see a bug on the ground, I'm not shooting it out of the way. I'm stopping on it like goddamn bug. I mean, I'm American, forgive me, but
You're not gonna pick
it's
it up
just
and go, "Mm."
God, no. Maybe I'll pick up feed to the chickens I have, but that's about it. Like I guess that kind of is making the circle of life go around there. So I mean, kind of. I guess I'm following some shit.
Oh, that's
But
funny. That's funny.
so how was and actually, oh, Harley also said that for 46, you look good. So
Thank you.
you're getting all that self-esteem confidence boost tonight. I mean, come on. But so how is becoming a shamanic practitioner really impacted your life? Like, how's it changed your life in a way that most people wouldn't?
So before my training, things would be hit and miss, you know what I mean? So I didn't know how to call upon it for answers. I didn't know how to use it for problem solving or to help myself in any way, shape, or form that was useful. It would just hit me like a ton of bricks, usually when my mom was sick, or something was about to happen, or, somebody was about to call, like catastrophizing type situations. But when I started my training, it was about a year before I had a surgery where the doctor was supposed to remove 2 ovarian cysts. And I just didn't feel well after the surgery. And the voice of one of my first guides that was coming through said, look for something in your environment that you left yourself that will let you know what's going on inside of you. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And so I started looking around my house for things that I had left myself. And on my altar, for some reason, I don't remember doing this, I bought the figurine of a pregnant woman and put it next to a wooden skull. And so when I started to touch my abdomen, I realized there was a lump in there. And so my guides were like, you need to have that looked at because whatever that is will kill you. And so I set up an appointment for a doctor. It took him about a month and a half to get me in.
Of
And then
course.
when I got in there, they told me I was just fat and constipated and I should go home. But I told them I'm not leaving without a script for an ultrasound. And so, I mean, I could feel it. It was like the size of a grapefruit, but they said, oh, I don't feel anything. It's just you're overweight. So when I refused to leave, they finally asked or gave me a script for an ultrasound. Then they rushed me to get an MRI and they said we need to do immediate surgery. And that voice I was hearing, a male voice, said, don't go with that doctor because she'll lie. And I was like, oh, really? And I asked these people, I was like, what do you think's in there? And like, we don't know, but it should have been seen the last time you had your surgery. It's growing too fast. And I was like, what do you mean? So I just didn't trust this person, went to another doctor. And so this thing had been inside my body for 8 months before they went in and did a surgery. They found a large wad of gauze they had left behind, two great sized masses that had fused all of my organs together. They were basically abscesses, and then fused my organs to my abdominal wall. So they had to remove these abscesses, my left ovary, surgically separate all my organs and separate it off of my muscle tissue. And then about 8 months later, I was not feeling well again. Well, I never felt well after that surgery. And I ended up having to have a hysterectomy. So I lost all my reproductive organs. And then 8 months after that, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath, and found that all the infection had spread throughout my body, and it created a rare autoimmune disease that ate through my arteries and my aorta. And because I was in the midst of a medical lawsuit, I was refused care by 40 doctors in 3 different states. They
Jesus.
they told me my test results were normal. They said I was mentally ill, that I was making it up, that there was something wrong with me, that just because I had chest pain or shortness of breath, it was just my mind telling me I was unhappy and I should see a psychiatrist. They told me that I was a typical woman that had symptoms with no basis in reality and I needed to learn to relax, or that I wasn't dead yet, so I must not be that bad. And so, yeah, they were horrible. So I actually, my guide said, go order your medical records and see what's wrong. And then, so I found this list of like 15 things deep. And my guides were the ones that taught me how to turn off a terminal disease, seizures. I started having seizures every day. And I actually had 16 strokes that wiped out my memory for 2.5 years. I couldn't read. I couldn't do math. I didn't know who I was. And these guides basically led me to the doctor that was willing to put synthetic tubes in my chest to give me the blood to both my legs, my left arm, and my brain.
Okay, I have never been a fan of the medical community at all, but I have to say, what the fucking fuck? Like, it's that's horrible. Like, that's just see, these are the type of stories that need to get on the news. Just saying, but yeah, it's just like that. And this was all in America. I'm assuming,
Yeah,
but
it was all in Washington well, Washington state, but also doctors in other states. But these guides were like very instrumental of like stop eating these foods like dairy, gluten, meat, all that stuff, basically putting me on a grain-free, sugar-free vegan diet. And then they had me go to like the grocery store and they said, get turmeric, which I knew nothing about at the time, get tons of oregano, rosemary, and then something else, all which were antifungal, antimicrobial, antibacterial, basically stuff. And so it killed the infection that was inside of me. And then they were teaching me how to basically get my organs to function again, because I had paralysis, intestinal paralysis for 3 years where I had to drink my food. But I have full function of my body again, full function of my mind. You couldn't tell that I had anything wrong except for the scars on my body. But my guides were the ones that taught me that. And I had a 1% chance of survival, and they would breathe for me in my chest until I could find the doctor that they led me to on this really strange. It was just weird. They're like, you need to go to California. And I said, I don't know anybody in California. And they said, but you know somebody who does. And they flashed the picture of a doctor I used to work with in the government office 6 years before. Like I had not laid eyes on him in 6 years. And so I emailed him and I said, do you remember me? And he said, yes. And I explained my situation. And I said, do you know anybody in California? And he suggested I go to Stanford. So while I'm flying to Stanford Hospital, I look out over the horizon as the sun is coming up, and I ask that voice that I kept hearing, will they help me? And these tiny little lakes light up in the distance, and they said, they will have a partial answer for you, but they will not be able to do the surgery. And I said, well, who will? And this giant lake lit up in the distance at like a copper penny as the sun came over the horizon. And they said, you will have to travel east, but don't worry, the people in California know exactly who to go to. So when I got to Stanford Hospital, they said, your case is so complicated, you need a medical group that will work with you, like the doctors east in Rochester, Minnesota, at the Mayo Clinic. And that doctor
Mm-hmm.
that I saw used to work for the Mayo Clinic. And that's why I specifically had to see her, because she knew where to go. And so they knew within 24 hours what these people didn't know in 3 years.
I mean, and this was all like in what year range? From like
So
2010s or
I in 2005 is when the sponge was left in my gut, or the wad of gauze. So I was in my, God, I can't even do math, 30s or something like that, late 20s, early 30s. And then the surgery itself to remove the sponge was in 2010. Or it's not sponge, to do the open heart surgery was in 2010. And after that, I had a grand mal seizure followed by a huge stroke that wiped out my memory again for a couple years. And that wasn't my last one, but my guides told me what to do. I no longer have seizures. I no longer have strokes. I no longer have this rare condition that most people die in 5 years. And it's been, yeah, since 2005. I don't have any of it anymore.
I mean, I actually had more faith in the medicine world back then, even. But I mean, because I was a naive teenager. But I mean, Jesus, that's just. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, you go to the doctor nowadays, you get to run around. Half the things you have can't be fixed by anything they can give you. Oh, it's viral. Just drink plenty of water and go home and take. Don't take over the counter stuff because it's not going to help. But just go home and deal with it. We'll give you something, but it's for antibacterial stuff. It's for antibacterial stuff, for antiviral. So it may help, may not. Like that's all they tell you nowadays. Like it's just, especially since COVID, like it's gotten worse. It's just gotten worse. Like so many doctors and nurses just left, and it's just the medical community doesn't care about people anymore. That's the problem. They only care about the bottom line, the dollar.
Well, they're great if you break a bone and if you need acute care. But if you have a chronic condition of any kind, mental, emotional, or physical, they're terrible with it, because it's a disease management corporation. It is not actually health care, because healthcare goes to the root. It doesn't just deal with symptoms. So that was something that was, again, a huge lesson for me. But as my guides pulled from my medical training, so I was a medical massage therapist for 11 years, but I also was a medical claims examiner that was trained by medical doctors to know all the different diseases out there, or as many as they could possibly explain to us, and then the different medications. So my guides would use me like a medical medium, not only for myself, but for my clients. And they would go through all the Rolodex of stuff in my brain, even if I barely remember what it was. And sometimes I would have to Google the terms they would use, and they would be at 100% accurate. I'm like, you better be right. Don't make me look like an asshole, you know. But they would be accurate. But the same thing happened with myself. You know, they knew when a doctor was going to prescribe a medication, they said, don't do that. That will kill you. And so when I told the doctor I won't take that, they would sit down and look it up on the computer and like, oh, you're right. Because it was contraindicated for one of the other conditions I had.
It makes sense. Yeah, I mean, doctors are fastest to prescribe medicine at either the company's paying them to prescribe it, or just medicine that's the first thing they think of. They don't want to look. They don't want to do the research. I mean, it's not like it's not like it was 30, 40 years ago when doctors actually like looked into things. Now it's not really. I don't blame them 100%. They're so busy nowadays, and there's so many people for so few doctors. That's just, I mean, a lot of them get overwhelmed and leave the freaking industry because they just can't deal with it. Like it's just the way it goes. But I mean, I don't know. The whole medical community needs a upheaval and restructuring. I think a lot of European countries have a lot better medical than we do, and they need to kind of look at how they do it and see how they do it. I don't know. It's just, this is not a medical show by any means, but it's something that always gets my nerves. Like I've dealt with it plenty in my life myself with my family, so I just luckily we have known some good doctors. I mean, my grandfather's life was saved by a doctor who figured out how to get veins from his legs into his heart and actually like make him live another 10 years. So, it's there's good ones out there. It's just they're all retiring or dying out, and it's not a good thing.
Well, the doctor that worked on me said that if they put a vein from my leg into my chest to bypass my aortic arch and the artery to my left arm, which had lost 90% of the blood to it, they said my body would eat it. So I said, what are you going to do? And they said, we can't put a cadaver in there because your body will eat that too. So we're going to put ski suit material in you. So the tubes in my chest to give me the blood, again, to both my legs, my left arm, and my brain, are made out of Gore-Tex and Decron, which is what you use on your ski suits.
Huh? Sometimes sometimes these freaking things that are not meant to eat human bodies can save human bodies. Who the hell knows? There are stranger things out there. There really is. But to bring it a little bit more back towards the paranormal realm,
Paranormal, yes.
let's talk about the dark side
Oh
of
gosh.
shamanism. Of shamanism, not the Force. Sorry, listeners. I know you're probably like, he's talking about Star Wars again. I wish, but the dark side of shamanism. It's actually not a topic that I really ever talk about in this show, but I'm kind of curious. I always ask everybody. There's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, why? If there's light, there's got to be dark to everything in some form or shape. So there's got to be a dark side to shamanism. I'm sure. We all know the legend of the skinwalkers and how that's the dark side of shamanism for Native Americans. But what is your opinion on the dark side of shamanism?
Well, I actually just interviewed somebody on my podcast the other day from Belgium who is trained as a black shaman. So a black shamanism in his black shamanism in that tradition is a way of describing somebody who deals with dark things. And so like when I was in my training, a lot of times I would have people that would be possessed, sometimes very lightly, only like they were not aware of it. They would just, feel something attached in some way or just not like themselves. And so they might feel sort of drained or a little bit drunk or a little bit whatever. And I'd find something attached to them. Other times I'd watch people like full blown possession try to hit me, bite me, hiss at me, watch something flip back and forth between husband and wife, alter their voices, their eye color, their face shapes, like just like the full blown, like, exorcist movie without the pea soup coming out. But yeah, like because it will morph your features. It's called like plastic mediumship, where people's features will change or what have you. But a dark shaman is somebody who may actually enlist darker spirits that they not only have to house, like they will have spirit houses, which may actually look like a little like dollhouse, or they may have them like strips of fabric. It's called an effigy. They would have an effigy in which these things would live. and they would infuse the spirit into this object that would then be fed at times, could be fed with milk, ghee as in butter, oil, fire, breath, blood, whatever. And they would call upon those spirits to help protect either the individual or the tribe, or what have you. Because sometimes it takes darkness to fight darkness in some people's belief systems. Um, but these beings know, like they would have the black shamans would have like basically like a soul contract with these beings, like, don't hurt me, don't hurt any of my clients. You'll get to feed on the darkness as much as you want, but you have to be a good little boy or girl. You have to behave, do your thing. You'll get energy, you'll get fed on a regular basis. We'll give you some alcohol, we'll give you some tea, we'll give you tobacco or whatever it is that makes you happy. But in return, you need to heal my clients. And so sometimes they would call upon these dark beings to take some of these nasty things off of clients, just like the nasties would come after me. And I didn't call upon dark things to do this, but I probably had some ethnocentric beings on my stream, meaning they were not all angelic. Some ethnocentric means they like you, but maybe not somebody else. They may be a middle world being rather than an upper world being, like a god or goddess or ascended master, like Jesus or Buddha or something like that. They're basically like a deceased ancestor or being that believes in you, like my one of my guides is Native American because of my training. So part of the dark side of shamanism is what are the caliber of the beings that are your allies, for one. Another part of it is like dealing with curses. In some traditions, they don't look at energy as good or bad, light or dark. They just look at energy as in, different levels of vibration. And in some cases, it's quite common to cast curses. And those practitioners believe it's not on the karma of the practitioner, but the person asking for the curse to be placed on somebody. So you would see these wells in the Amazon and several other places filled with these clay figurines with needles and knives and all sorts of things in there. People talk about voodoo dolls. Some would do something called the ripping of the sari, in which they would infuse the essence or soul energy of somebody into that cloth. And in the tearing of it, they would be ripping the soul from the body. And so basically those people that practice, not the ones that are protecting humans with dark things, but the ones that are actually doing dark acts would be considered sorcerers. Now, I don't know if people out there who are wizards and warlocks and whatever would disagree with me, but in the shamanic realms, we have a term of like sorcerer or something to that effect, in which there's somebody who would actively do harm to somebody else for, it could be competition, it could be to protect the tribe, it could be all sorts of different things. But there's always going to be somebody out there, just like black witchcraft or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely mean, I worked with a Reiki master for a long time last year, and like honestly, I got to reach out to her because I could definitely use a good cleansing. But I mean, and we talked one time about like, is there such thing as like dark Reiki? And she's like, oh, 100%. She's like, there
Yeah,
are definitely those out there that go on that side. She's like, and like I even talked to her, like, can I use one of these people? Like, possibly, can you hook me up with one of them? And for situations, but and she's like, I can. She's like, I can juice you, but she's like, you really shouldn't. She's like, whatever you wish to do will come back and haunt you twice as much as you want to haunt somebody else. Like, dark magic has a toll, like it really does. And
it does.
I took her word for it because it's what I've always heard about everything on the darker side of things. Whether no matter what you call it, it's always going to have a price. I mean, you don't get something in life without paying for it. I mean, if you're doing good, then good thing it's karma. It's all karma at the end of the day. And uh, unfortunately, dark things come back to haunt you, and so it's just not wise to go down that road because you're not going to get anything good. You'll get something you want out of it, maybe, but what's going to happen to you 5, 10 years down the road? Like they're going to come back to take the price, and it's
People do it
just,
all day though. People do it all day. They're not, they don't consider themselves shamans, but when you're gossiping about somebody or you're wishing bad things on them, what do you think you're doing? Cursing. You're casting a stone, you're casting a barb, you're casting whatever. You don't have to be a shaman. You are just as much as of a powerful being as something else. Now they have rituals and ceremonies to gather their power in a more uh, sustainable, consistent manner. But if you have enough emotional intensity behind it, one word or whatever, that's why emotional abuse is so toxic, or gaslighting. I've had 115 clients since January 2023 trying to overcome narcissistic abuse. And the effects of gaslighting, it hits the head. It will show up on a brain scan like a head injury. So when people are doing this stuff all day long, whether you call it shamanism, sorcery, or whatever, ordinary people are doing this to themselves and each other. Even people who are wishing their lives away, they are cursing themselves.
I mean, trust me, I know all too well about narcissistic people, all too well. But
Yeah.
it's just, to me, that's like kind of the ultimate evil. Because how do you like it? There's tons of people out there that try to teach you how to deal with it, but it's just there really is no putting up with it or dealing with narcissism. It's just it's impossible. Like it's a daily struggle. It just they don't go away. They are there just to make your life miserable, and they just do not go away. But it's just, at least from my experience, like they don't ever give up. They Even if you defeat them at some point, they still just keep trying to fight that fight. And it's just
They
why?
will
You're
give
not
up.
gonna. When though? I mean, when the damage is done, or when they did what they wanted to do, like they're not gonna give up and not win the battle, or at least think they
When
win the
you stop
battle.
reacting, they love it when you react. But if you're boring, they don't go after you. That's the thing that I'm starting to notice. If you have strong boundaries and you don't give in, but people who are empaths and people pleasers, they attract narcissists and dark triads like you wouldn't believe. Dark triads are worse than just narcissism because they blend narcissism with Machiavellianism and psychopathy, and that is a person that's like, wow, that's probably the one that's never going to give up until the person's dead on the side of the road.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, and remind me to touch on that more when we go off the air. But yeah, yeah, it is what it is. So actually, yeah, okay, this is a good topic change. Well, a good segue, I should say. So if you're dealing with all this darkness in your life on a regular basis, how do you raise your own vibration to fight it? Or how
Ah,
would you, at least how would you tell someone to do that?
well, there's a multi approach to it. First of all, you are who you hang with. Through the power proxy, so they found that your heart has a bundle of 44,000 neurons that generates the largest electromagnetic field in your body. Your heart electrically is 40 to 60 times stronger than your brain and will go out several feet, but it's up to 100 times more magnetically stronger than your brain. So if you have a higher vibrational person around a lower vibrational person, and the lower vibrational person is dominant, that higher vibrational person will lower in mood, energy, and performance by a minimum of 30%. They will start to take on their traits. They will start to take on all these different things. If you are around toxic people, you need to clear out your list. So part of raising your vibration is, who are you hanging around with? Because that will take you down faster, because the top 5 people you spend time with have control and authority over your life, because they influence what you think, what you believe, how you feel, what you say, act, do, whatever, because you want to please them or not get in trouble or whatever the case may be. So the people you're around, your environment. Another thing too is if you have clutter around your house, if it energy collects there, dark things collect there. So make a clear pathway. That's why minimalism is actually better. Not having a lot of piles and stuff built up. And if you have letters or uh, belongings from ex lovers or people you don't like, people who are deceased, what have you, you may have a collection of energies or vibrations in your home that will then affect you. Like I do house blessings or house cleansing, and I'll walk in, I'm like one guy in particular, I'm like, what's right here? Because this has such a dark field. It might as well be an entity, but it's not responding to me. And he goes, oh no, I don't want it to hurt my journal. So he goes, picks it up, and as he walks away, the feeling goes with him. And I was like, what is that? He's like, oh, it's my blood, sweat, and tears from the last 10 years of building my business. So he had put enough emotional intensity and repetition into this journal that it had a field of its own. Same thing with
Jesus.
belongings from people who died. If they were attached to their belongings, they may show up like entities in your house, which will then affect your vibration. If you have objects from estate sales or thrift stores, be careful. Got to cleanse those, because oftentimes that the information or the emotion or whatever is there. If you're going to
Oh,
smudge, huh?
that just made me think of like I read the story a while back, like years ago, of this couple who bought a crib at like a yard sale or something, and they brought it home and it was like there was an entity attached to it, and it was like a very dark entity, and it was in I want to say it was a real story I saw like on the news. Like I don't think it was a movie. I think it was actually like a real story I saw in the news because I really wasn't into horror movies back then. But like they actually published this in newspapers and stuff because it was just so fascinating, like that no one could explain it, but like it just made their child be very dark and grow up dark. Like it was just interesting. It was, I mean, yeah, I mean, at that point you gotta do what the Winchesters recommend, just take it out back and burn it and salt it. But
Yeah,
but I
no,
mean, it's
yeah.
but please continue. That just brought up that to me, and I haven't thought of that freaking story in years, so that was interesting.
Other times I will go into a house and I will go, what happened in this space? Because there's been times where I felt like I was being punched or hit. And this one family, like the son goes, oh, mom, remember the people that lived here before used to abuse their son in this room. So I could feel the arguments, the energy imprints left behind. Even a house that was just being barely framed, like the drywall had not gone up yet. And I said, what happened right here? They said we had an argument with our contractor. So things with emotional intensity and repetition can be right there, you know. And so if you don't clear out the energies that are in your home, in your space on a regular basis, they are going to collect like leaves in a drain, or like food that did not digest and just rots in the fridge or in your gut, if you do not clear out your home on a regular basis of the energies of whatever. So part of that could be sound, vibration, rattling, drumming, singing, bells, high pitched bells, or things like Tibetan singing bowls or whatever are great for clearing out energies. So too with like sage or Palo Santo or resins like copal, frankincense, whatever. Open a door or a window when you're doing that so the things can leave. Um, be careful of the things you listen to, your mental diet. If you're listening to death metal, if you're listening to like people screaming about dead fetuses and whatever, that if that stuff,
Yeah.
it does something to your body. Just like if you watch the water emoto or the Emoto Water Project, where the guy would uh, bless things like words on water bottles and then freeze them and see what the crystals looked like later. Or when you see the experiments of people either yelling at a plant or saying something nice to it, the plant that you're yelling at will die, or the one that you're giving good, beautiful music to will thrive. They're showing like, be careful of so what you're watching on TV, what you're listening to in terms of music, because it's affecting your mood. If you're being jerked around by what you watch or what you consume mentally or emotionally or auditorily, you are just pissing in your own pond. If you have bad thoughts, if you say bad things to yourself and other people. So I mean, really, it is a lifestyle change. If you want to raise your vibration, don't have negative speech, don't have gossip, even though that can be fun for some people. Don't listen to horrible stuff. Uh, have positive attitude. There's so many different things that comes to raising vibration, but you can't be a negative person and listen to all these negative people around you, or even the news, and not get affected by it.
Okay, couple things. I mean, no, you're good. But I mean, what you listen to, I think that's more a mindset. I mean, as I just showed you, I am a juggler by trade, and I listen to I listen to a lot of hardcore rap in my free time when I'm not listening to music for podcasts. 'Cause I do run a music podcast as well. But I do listen to I do listen to a lot of hardcore rap and death metal. But I to me it's always been a mood lifter. It's never been like a downer. It's like it's why I listen to what I need to lift my mood, and it helps. Like it really does like help in every way. Like I can be having the worst day in the world, put on some ICP, Esham, Scum, Slipknot, take your pick. And like I feel better after listening to it for like a half, like even 10 minutes of it. Like I'll feel better. Like 3 songs, put on 3 freaking songs and I'll feel better. Like it's it's a mood lifter. Like I think what you listen to actually depends on on what your on how you react to that certain. Like yes, a lot of people listen to my that if they just put on my type of music and not knowing what it is, and it's funny because my music podcast has actually tested this out, but they put on not knowing what it is. Like a lot of them was like, I got so depressed listening to your music. I'm like, really? It makes me happy. Like it's just, I think it's to stay. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's a state of your mind. I think it's what's going on in your head at that moment that really helps with it. Because I mean, hardcore rap like brings me so much joy just because it makes me forget my problems and just lets everything out. Like it's like an emotional release. Like it's I don't know. I mean, it's almost close to what Reiki does for me, but I not quite. But I mean, it's almost what Reiki does for me. Like I can't explain it.
Interesting.
Like it's that's why that's why when you said that, I'm like I don't know about that. I'm like I love death metal and it like I'll listen to Slipknot all freaking day long, especially if I'm having a bad day. I'll put on one of their albums. It'll just be a mood lifter. Like it feels like the anger's just gone. It feels like the rage is gone. It feels like it's the depression's gone. It just feels like happiness. Like I think it has to do with your brain chemistry for that type of thing. I really does. I really do. I mean, not trust me, not for 95% of people, this will not work the way it works for me.
Right. I
But
was going to say, there's
for
probably a
me,
select group it's the reverse.
I mean it is. I mean it's just the way we operate. I mean it's our brain chemistry. But I mean I hear Slipknot say I push my fingers into my eyes and I'm just like relief. Like it's just I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like God, I mean maybe it's when you first heard it, maybe it's when you got into it, and maybe it just depends when you got into it in life. Like I don't know. Like I can't explain these phenomenons like that, but. I mean, I guarantee for 95% of people, like I've seen this in my music show. Like, I'll bring an album like that to somebody that doesn't really listen to that music and not knowingly, and like and they'll just be like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm just like, it's what brings me joy. Leave me alone. But like, it's just I don't know. Like I mean, and what you watch. I mean, yeah, I kind of get that one. I mean, I can't enjoy a. I mean, actually, I don't know because I mean, I can enjoy a good like I don't know, horror movies bring me joy, like, and that's new. That's new. That's only in the last like 2 years that horror movies brought me joy. Before that, I avoid them like the plague. But I mean, the last 2 years, I've been getting into them for podcast reasons, and I don't know. They just like horror movies do something to me. Like they just, it's entertainment. It's all it is really to me. But it's just they bring some kind of joy out. Like I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that like it's somebody's experienced something worse than I am, and that makes me like humbled, maybe. I don't. mean, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist by any fucking means, so people do not listen to me for 1 second and think you should take my advice, but it works for me. So I, you know, I had to put that disclaimer. I had to put that disclaimer out there for everybody else because everybody else is not me, unfortunately. But
There's
for the
always
moment,
a bell curve, and there's always some outlier that's going to be
exactly,
like the
exactly.
exception to the rule. But the average person, they're showing, like, again, when they do these like these tests, um like what sound or vibration does to your electromagnetic field, including your heart, despite the happy hormones or whatever that you're getting, the majority of individuals will have a negative response within them, just because the frequencies are dissonant with health and life. And so whatever that may be, again, you're an outlier or whatever that may be, but they're even doing, like I said, whether it's be water, sand, blood, plasma, tissue, and they're using these different frequencies, and they're showing that it does have a negative impact for the people that they're testing. So
I
the
get. You're an outlier. The best way I've ever been described. It's one of the nicest ways to say to say
there's
something
always
about
an
me.
exception, so
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and we don't know what your spiritual lineage is. We don't know what would allow you to be more resilient towards that, or have the opposite effect. Just like ADHD, you give an ADHD kid caffeine and they're going to go the opposite direction. They're going to calm down. So there's got to be somebody with that, in terms of spirituality too. So I'm not going to just say tis tis tis.
I get it. I mean, I mean, yeah, not everybody's me. I 100% agree with that statement. I don't. I mean, okay, I'm not gonna lie. Part of me wants everybody to be me, but part of me also doesn't because that wouldn't be unique and that wouldn't be fun. But so, I mean, it's just it's the way it is. I mean, I've met hundreds of people like me. I've been to enough Juggalo concerts in my life to meet people like me, and when you see 30, anywhere from 30 to hundreds of people having the time of their life at shows like that, like it's just this music does something to certain people. Like we might be the outliers in the world 100%. But we also might be the ones that are better off because of it. Like it's like things are not going to bring us down like that. We're not affected like that, and maybe that makes us a little bit more resilient to things, and
It's possible, yeah.
not bad. That's not a bad thing because like I have been to maybe 7 funerals in my life, maybe 8. I don't know.
Mhm.
Never shed a tear at a single one, even though they're some of my closest relatives. Never shed a tear in any one because it's not the way I'm built.
Sure.
I mean, it's just, I mean, part of me was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Why am I not? But it's also not, I just assumed not the way you're built. Okay, whatever. Like, move on. Like, yeah, they're gone, but that also has to do with my beliefs in reincarnation and death and everything. And I don't think death's the final door. I think
No.
it opens a lot more doors than it closes. So I that's part of the reasoning. I think I've just discovered that in the last few years, but I guess it explains why I felt the way I did for the last 15, 20 years. Like at funerals, like it just funerals don't depress me. Like it's just if anything, it's a gathering of family. It should be a somewhat happy time because you get to see family you haven't seen in years. Like in a way. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just have a way of seeing the good and the bad. I don't freaking know. Like
You may
I'm,
have different. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm a freaking mystery. I don't know.
You may be wired differently. Like, you may have different neural pathways. You may have different levels of empathy or mirror neurons that don't make you as taken down by certain things, that the other person who has higher levels of it will be like, oh my god, you know what I mean? So
Oh, I mean, I trust me. My family straight up said to me before, like you're like a zombie at a funeral. I'm like, not really. I'm just not gonna sit there and freaking. I mean, most people that passed in my life, they were not well when they passed. Like they lived a decade or so of hardship before they passed. Like it's only right that they pass so they don't have to do that anymore. Like, I mean, my logic's not off. Like, you can say like,
no.
oh, but they could have had a better life. Not likely. Not
Yeah.
likely. And
Yeah.
I'm a realist, so I'm not gonna sit there and like try to live in imagination land. Like, oh, they could have. Yeah, anybody could have a better life, but doesn't mean they're going to. Like, it's a realism thing. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, didn't expect this to turn into a therapy session for me, but shit happens. But well, I've kept you for over an hour already, but
No, it's good. It's been great.
it has been. But let me ask the one final question I like to ask people in your state of, well, in your basic general area of work. What is, if you had to give, if you had one moment in front of the world to give advice to people of the world, what would you tell them in order to live the best life they could live? I know this is always a hard one, but
Learn to be neutral or better. A person, most illnesses that I'm finding are mental and emotional. So if you can learn to temper your reaction to life, if you can control your emotions, you will have life by the balls. It's people that are being swayed around by their emotions that they often will mistake emotions for intuition. And if they're hyper reactive to their environment, then they will be pushed around by it. So learning to control your thoughts, learning to control your speech, your emotions, you're going to have a better handle on life than somebody who's trying to avoid their environment and control their environment. Control yourself. You will have a much better life if you learn to, and I don't mean like lock yourself down or whatever, but learn how to use this instrument, whether it's breath work or working on your vagus nerve or whatever it is, to become more resilient, because you will have less mental, emotional, and physical problems if you have less reactions to people and things in your environment. Because that's what I'm finding is a long-term problem, is people are still ruminating on something that happened to them 30 years before because they're having a constant reaction to it, and then they make meaning out of it. So change what you think, change how you feel, change the meaning you have behind it, reframe it if you have to, because reality is only what you think it is. The perfect quote is, the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right.
I'm not gonna lie, I fucking love that. I really do.
So
And
change your reality by changing, your beliefs and your reactions.
in the words of Electric Light Orchestra, folks, don't bring me down. Gross. But yes, exactly. And for the longest time, I thought it was Don't Bring Me Down, Bruce. But I actually brought that album on a show about a couple months ago, and I actually looked at the lyrics in that song as I was listening to it. And I'm like, it's gross. I thought it was Bruce. What the fuck? Like
Oh, funny.
30,
That's hilarious.
I'm like 30 years of fucking lies. But I'm like, because for 30 years I've been asking, who the fuck is Bruce? But like, it's just one of those things. But yeah, in the words of ELO, don't bring me down. Like, that's life. Like, if she's right. I mean, Ashley's 100% right. If you have to bring other people down to make yourself feel better, you're just making the world a worse place. You really are. Like, you should be lifting everybody else up, and that way everybody's feeling better and the world's a better place. I mean, it's all about spirit. It's all about spirit. It's all about karma. It's all about dharma, fate, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's all about that shit. Like, don't be confused.
Well, when you
But
change yourself, your environment changes. I'm not joking. When you change to a
oh,
neutral or better attitude, your environment will reflect it, because what you
I
what you feel is the filter through which you see, hear, and experience life.
exactly. That's. I mean, I didn't always live this way, but that's how I've been living my life for the last 5 years, decades, whatever. Like, I never worried. Like, if, oh, a bill's due, it's overdue by a couple months. Oh shit! Guess what? It's gonna get paid. Just, it's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. I don't know how yet. I don't know where the fucking the money's gonna come from. But guess what? Something will come along, and 99% of the time, I'm pretty damn right about that. So, you know, you just, it's manifestation. You put your what you want to happen out there in the universe, and somehow it's going to happen. It may take time. You may be in tight situations for a minute, but it's gonna happen eventually. Somehow the universe finds a way to make the shit work for you. You want to. If you want to just fucking be miserable and not have the universe work for you, then yeah, you're gonna be miserable. That's that's the way it goes, I guess. But I do want to thank Ashley for coming on, everybody, because it's been a freaking amazing show. And
Oh,
an
thank
hour
you.
and 10 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes. I honestly feel like we can go another 50 minutes if we really want to. But I mean, I'm on the East Coast and it's getting late, even though I'm supposed to be in a
Oh,
podcast in an
dang.
hour. Even though I'm supposed to be on another podcast in an hour, but I honestly don't know if I'm gonna make that one or not. But I already told them, like, dude, you're West Coast, I'm East Coast. This may not work. We'll see, but we'll see if I'm still up at that point. But thank you for coming on, Ashley. It's been enlightening. It's been amazing, and honestly, I'd be totally down to have you back on at some point in the future because it's
Sure.
maybe after my hiatus when I come back in, like, say 2025 or something.
Okay.
I am, for all listeners out there who don't know. I mean, how the fuck could you not know by now? You're really a listener, but fuck. Um, Wife is prego, so taking a break from October-ish to probably 2025 at least. So you'll have plenty of episodes to listen to, listeners, but watchers, yeah, I'll still be doing my music show, but this show's gonna take a break for a while because I've been giving you 3 to 5 episodes a week, so you're good for a while. But yeah, I've been keeping you. Go check out the old ones. Go watch the videos. Go retweet them and share them on Facebook, please. But I at this point, of course, Ashley, where can they find you? Where can they find everything you do? Where can they find your podcast? Just sell yourself to the fullest.
So my website is bonesoftheearth.org.
Love
And
that.
then my podcast is Soul Deep on Gnostic TV. If you just go to Gnostic TV and go to the catalog and type in Ashley Brothers, you find me. All of my podcasts are free on there. So yeah, so far there's like 20 something. I'll probably have 30 by the end of the month, but interviewing people from all over the world, different traditions and what have you, blend of science, spirituality, basically to help people heal and transform their lives. But yeah, bonesoftheearth.org. That's bones with an S.
Well, there you go, folks. And of course, that link will be in the podcast description when this releases in God knows when. But it will release at some point and it will be in there. But if you all don't know where to find me by this point, shame on you. But check the outro. It's all there again as always. And until Monday, I'm assuming, when I have another interview. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming Monday. Until then, have a good weekend, folks. Go party. Go do something. Make you happy. Lift your life up. But till then, have a good night.